Everyone heard about Mariupol by now, and everybody heard about Azov and Azov Steel factory, or as the Russians call it, Azov Steel. So currently the news are telling us that there's over 1,000 soldiers there, Ukrainian soldiers, and that's what BBC is telling us, that's what CNN is telling us. So this is what we're going to talk about and explore the lies by the media in relation to Azov Steel factory. You recognize this guy? Well, I saw this guy on BBC, you see, probably on CNN as well, because they show this guy pretty much everywhere. He's got a funny hat, doesn't he? And they tell us that he is the commander, a Marine commander that is stuck underground. That's right, underground of Azov Steel factory. He's basically hiding there from the Russians and refusing to leave. Okay, so this dude, you can search for him on BBC or CNN in the last 2 days, the picture is still up there. Here's an interesting part. You know, the first picture, don't know if you paid attention, he was sitting next to someone. Did you pay attention? Have a look closely, you can see an arm. And have a look what that man has on his left shoulder. An emblem. What is that, I wonder? So obviously we know he's in the same location, our bearded Marine commander of the Ukrainian forces, because we can see the wall, exactly the same wall, yeah, and it's white. So anyway, what is that, eh? What is that insignia, an emblem? Let's ask ourselves, shall we? Well. Let's go on Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is pretty much going to tell us about the Azov Battalion. I mean, anything can tell you about the Azov Battalion. I would personally stay clear of the Western news. Get yourself a VPN, maybe download a program that can translate to you. Go on the Russian websites and have a little read about them. But if you don't want to spend money and you want to learn about Azov, go on Wikipedia and it will tell you. What do we have here? We have a swastika. Wikipedia actually tells you that these guys are neo-Nazis. Now, I wonder why the news, for example, this particular picture that BBC portrayed, where this gentleman was there alone by himself, but they never showed us the picture of this guy. So who is he sitting next to? Oh, hello there. Interesting. Who might you be? Well, guys, let's have a look at Wikipedia. Denis Prokopenko. That's right, the commander of Azov. That's who this guy is. So type in Wikipedia Denis Prokopenko, okay? And have a little read about the guy himself. Now, not much bad stuff is said about him on the Wikipedia, but we can see he's the commander of the neo-Nazis. That's right, so now we have a Marine sitting next to a Nazi, together in the tunnel. Now the Marine commander's name is Sergei Vogin, okay? And this dude actually wrote a letter because he wanted the Pope to see it. He's basically begged for help through a letter to the Pope. Could you believe that, guys? The guy sits somewhere in the tunnel underneath the factory with his Nazi friend and he writes a letter to the Pope begging for help. Oh dear. So we'll have the bearded commander crying his little eyes out, but we'll also have the Nazi friend crying his little eyes out too. And he actually made a recording where he's crying his eyes out. So now we have these two crying their eyes out, saying, help us. Now the Nazi commander made it clear that there are hundreds of civilians in the tunnel with them. So now we have the civilians, the Nazis, and the Ukrainian Marines underground in the tunnel in Mariupol just under the factory. You're probably thinking to yourself, those Russians scaring everyone, that you've got the Nazis, the Marines, and the civilians hiding in the tunnel underground. Food's running low, water's running low, probably oxygen's running low. Those Russians are bullies, you're probably thinking, right? That's what you're thinking at the end of the day, because that's what the news are telling you. But what the news don't tell you is that hundreds and hundreds Marines, or as the Russians call them, VSU, so basically Ukrainian soldiers who have surrendered in the factory unharmed, they're being looked after, just like the British guy that got captured by the Russians. He's getting looked after. This guy, I'll show you the picture of him. He's totally well. Nothing's up with him. No problems whatsoever. So, the question should be, why are the civilians inside that tunnel? What are they doing there? The Russians made it clear, look guys, you can leave. We're not going to do anything. But they're stuck there. The rest of the Ukrainians surrendering and nothing's happening to them. The civilians are not being touched. So why are they there? That's the question. Now, the other thing to ask yourself is, what do you think would happen to the neo-Nazis that try to surrender? That's a good question. Some people might say they'll get murdered. Some people say they won't get murdered. But which one is it going to be? Now, the real threat does not come from the Russians for those neo-Nazis in the tunnel. The real threat comes from the neo-Nazis themselves, because it's been well documented. If you download Telegram, okay, so you can download a program called Telegram, which is similar to WhatsApp, and you can choose, if you don't speak Russian, you can choose the English version, and you can look for yourself in English, where you'll see subtitles for certain videos that YouTube does not permit me to upload, as he deems it to be very, very violent. But those guys execute their own guys. They see them as traitors. Now, do you remember the video that I showed you of this guy, Denis Prokopenko? He actually talks about the traitors. You see, they execute traitors. So a lot of neo-Nazis there are scared. Now, in relation to the Marine, I don't really have any information in relation to him. I'd love to find something, but one thing I can say about him is he's underground with his neo-Nazi friend, and he hasn't surrendered. Now, he probably is a patriot, so, fair play to him. But in relation to the neo-Nazi guy, I wouldn't call it patriotism, okay? There's a massive difference between these two people, by the looks of it. As I said before, hundreds upon hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers have surrendered in Azov Steel factory. Now, majority of the people that are underground is civilians and neo-Nazis, and a couple of patriots like our bearded hero Marine. But people will wonder, thinking, oh my God, they are going to get gas because the news said the Russians are so bad, they're going to gas everyone. Guys, the Russians will not gas anybody. Mr. Putin has announced that they will not send the soldiers in the tunnels. Now, it makes sense not to send Russian soldiers in the tunnel, as they're booby traps. It's just going to be a bloodshed. A lot of Russian soldiers will lose their lives. So what Mr. Putin actually said now, he said, look, let's block them off. Yes, let's block them off. Simple. They're going to run out of water eventually. They're going to run out of food. So, there's more chance of these people surrendering. Now, that's a question that nobody knows an answer to. Because, as we know, our neo-Nazis are quiet, ferocious people that kill their own people. Personally, I think that, give or take 1 or 2 weeks, a lot of people will actually walk out, unless they get executed. But I think even the neo-Nazis themselves, when they're running out of food, they started to starve. You cannot bury the dead. They'll end up rotting in there, and disease will spread, because you cannot bury them once people die inside, and people are dying inside that tunnel. I think eventually they will come out, but it is in their interest to come out now. However, there's always another side. Maybe our bearded Marine commander and his little neo-Nazi friend enjoy a little private time, in the cover of the darkness before they're gonna come out. Okay, guys, subscribe to the channel, and I'm gonna keep up the good work. Purge News, take care.